Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. All right, we're going to talk Prey, which debuted on Hulu as the number one biggest premiere. Let's see. The deadliest hunt in history. This is from Hulu official Twitter. Prey movie is the number one premiere on Hulu to date. So we're going to react to this film, which, again, I think it's been out almost a week now. So we'll give it, I think we've given people ample time. Plus, it's a streaming movie. I give less time to streaming movies in order to kind of start talking about them than I would, other things. But before we get into that, I want to make a quick detour for a second. I was doing my homework this week, right? And I said as soon as I pop Netflix on to watch Ozark, I've now resumed finishing Ozark. I've gotten, thanks to all the great TV I've been watching over the last few weeks, I've now gotten a full enough respite from the tumultuous events of season 3 in Ozark to now resume. I'm going to finish this season out. I'm like resolute in doing that now.
I don't even remember Ozark now. like once you finish watching it, you're gonna have to remind me of that.
I will.
That happen.
Yeah, I will. So far, season 4 has started off fantastic, and I'm very excited about that. But I started season 4, episode 1. But then again, like I started it like right after the end of season 3, and I'm like, I can't do it. Yeah, like, after the cliffhanger of season 3, I was like, I need a break. Like I need a vacation. It was amazing.
Break because it took about 2 years for the show to come back after that.
It was good enough for me. Yeah,
you had to take a break again. You had to take a break within a break.
Yes. So I flipped on Netflix to start watching Ozark, and what pops up? It's Sandman. I'm like, oh, it actually debuted. Okay, great. This is, obviously it's right in our wheelhouse, right? It's comic book lore. It's Neil Gaiman, who's, revered as,
Indeed it is.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the worst pilot episodes I've ever seen. Like, just in terms of expectation meeting results, I literally wanted to fall asleep during that first episode. Also, visually, I find it kind of cheesy. Like after you see things like Umbrella Academy or The Boys that have like really excellent cinematography. This felt like it should have been on. Like I feel like this would have been on like network television 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like I didn't think the special effects were that good. I didn't even like just the way it ended up looking in general. I kind of just felt like it just looked old. And then I saw, who developed it? David Goyer. David Goyer has managed to be a part of everything comic book, for good or worse. I interviewed him once. Very nice guy. So nothing personal against him, but I interviewed him for Blade Trinity, which was like the worst of the Blade movies.
The one he directed.
Yeah, he directed that one too. And he was in the Batman franchise too. I mean, I think he helped with Christopher Nolan.
They touted him really loudly during Batman Begins, and then he kind of sunk back into the scenery.
Yeah,
the other 2 movies, but I think he was still involved with both of them.
Yeah, and yeah, it kind of just felt like. It also felt very comic booky. Where something like Umbrella Academy or even The Boys, whether or not you like the 2 of them or not, what I like about the 2 of them is they're not trying to be the comic book. And I felt like that first episode was just like so much recap to get us to the end. And they even had to be like, hey, stick around because here's what you're going to see on the next, on this season, please don't leave us. I don't know. Did you watch the entire season or I just watched the first episode and I was bored out of my mind?
I saw the first episode.
Okay. You did also see, yeah. What did you think? Was it enough to make you want to watch the rest of it?
It was.
Are you a fan of the book too?
No.
I don't know. Yeah, I never did either. I have no context for the book.
That's what I was going to say. Like it's, basically a lot of it is curiosity because I've been hearing about this book for decades.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of Neil Gaiman's writing.
Sure.
I've read several of his books, including American Gods and The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is my favorite. So I'm kind of compelled. He's behind it. And then what I mean by behind it is like he endorsed it. He likes, he's happy with it. I don't know. I like that first episode, so
Mm,
I disagree with you there. I wasn't bored by any stretch of the imagination. Not even though I didn't know anything about the lore or what was
sure.
going on.
No,
Um,
I agree with you. I mean, in a sense of not knowing anything about it, but I actually think that's a good thing in a way because there's a lot of shows I've done that where I'm not a fan of the comic book beforehand. I come in with no expectations, but to watch a show, and it's just like, and then I went online to look at what the critics say because sometimes I'm wrong, right? Like sometimes it's like, okay, I'll go online and they'll be like, no, this was great, and then I want to know why do you think it was great? Endless critics, you know, why Sandman's a failure, why it was, and they just keep talking about how boring that first episode is.
that's funny because everything I went to see said the opposite.
Did it
So,
really?
mhm.
Oh man, I
But
wrote
it's comic books
Sandman
done
review
right.
Netflix.
It's comic books done right. It's it's the comic book adaptation that we've been waiting for. It's the thing that we need today. I've
Interesting.
seen all sorts of different headlines.
So
So
this is really funny. I'm not gonna lie here. I typed in this earlier. Now the audience came up. The audience score came up very positive, so people liked it, right?
mhm.
Like the actual audience liked it. Um, top stories totally. I think our computers are listening to us because the top things that came up completely different than what I saw earlier today. Sandman season 1 review. Neil Gaiman's iconic series gets riveting adaptation. Sandman review. Netflix's DC series is the best show of 2022. But then you go a little bit further down, and I think there is
It's always going to be dissenters, and who's to say that either side is right? I'm
no.
not.
Well, I mean, I
I
think
haven't
it's
seen
very
the whole
right.
thing, so I can't even endorse it. The only thing I'll tell you, because I mean, there was a degree of like incoherent narrative and weird trippy
Mm-hmm.
non-linear stuff, which I mean I assume was intentional,
Yeah.
but that can rub you the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like some of me is compelled to stick with it just to figure out what the heck they were talking about and a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But I can see after watching that pilot or whatever you call it when it's streaming. I don't know what you
Sure.
call it. The first episode 1. I can see you, not you personally, Michael Dolce, but I can see if someone said, "Yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
This is not doing anything for me," because there's very little action in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a bird that gets killed.
Sure.
That's like the most action that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some decent special effects. Everybody looks like they're from The Cure.
Yes,
And so
exactly.
I get it. And I totally see, and it's also English, which
Yeah.
even though we're Americans and we're supposed to be a little bit above that, there's always a little xenophobia, kind of retrograde reaction in there. It's like, nah, I want to see Americans. I don't want to see people from another country. So
Right.
I'm not saying that anybody's crazy for not liking, especially that first episode. But I was intrigued. I enjoyed it. That's all I can say. I
I will
can't say
say,
anything else about the series or the book
yeah,
because I haven't experienced either one of them.
because I've seen like the comic book so much. I've never read it, but I've
Mhm.
seen it. When I did, that was the one positive to it. I was like, wow, he looks just like Morpheus. That looks,
Oh yeah, he does. He did.
like
He
that
really
one.
did.
At least they got that. At least they got that. So I got to be honest with you. Then I went right back to Ozark, and I'm in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, but you've lost me with Ozark, man, because
oh, I'm going to tell you what I think at the end.
no,
It's gonna
you
be
came
fantastic.
in, you were like, "Oh my god, this is one of the greatest things ever."
It
I was
is.
like, "I'm gonna have to watch it now." And then I
Yeah.
went to watch it, and then I ended up watching the whole thing. And then
Yeah.
when I saw the whole thing, let's talk about it. And you're like, "Oh, I stopped at the first episode." So
No. That is an inaccurate
you did
assessment
not.
because
You
I
did.
started. I
You had
told you
not
about it
gotten.
at season 3.
No.
Yes.
Yes, you told me about it at season 3.
Yes. You watched
But
all of season 3,
no,
and then
no, that's not how it works. That
Yeah.
is not how it worked. You watched episode 1 of
Yeah.
season 1 of
Yes.
Ozark. You
Yes.
said it was amazing.
Yes.
You told me about it.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the whole thing.
Yes. No.
All
Yeah.
the way,
You're way faster than me.
all the way to the end of season 3. And I'm
Yes.
like, I've seen it. Let's talk about it. And you're like, oh,
I was midway through season 1 at that point.
I've got children. I'm not going to ever get there where
No
you
way.
are.
But
So
look, let's be honest. That is Ozark is just it's an emotional roller coaster. I can get usually 1.5 episodes in before I'm like I need a break. Like I just need a break.
Have you finished it yet?
No, I told you I just got into season 4 now.
Yeah, you've not ridden any rides until you've seen those last few episodes.
Oh man, I know. I heard, and I know it's good. 14 episodes. That's tough, man. I don't know. That's gonna be.
Oh my goodness.
A tough one.
Oh, times is hard. Times is so hard.
It's not gonna be good. All right, let's jump over to Hulu. Let's jump over to Prey. As I do for some reason with all these things, I watched it in 2 sittings. But I don't know, something about watching it. I was like, whatever. I wasn't. The thing about Predator as a series is it's kind of the same rub, right? Like it's kind of he goes, he kills. Do we know why Predator does what he does?
Sport.
Have we ever?
Why do people play hockey?
Yeah, but basketball. I feel like he always ends up getting killed. So you would think like,
well, that's the sport.
You would think like after like 4 or 5 different times where the Predators make it to Earth and don't come back, they'd be like, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we've taken this a little too far.
We only know about the 1 or 2 or 3 that didn't come back. We don't know about the several thousand that may have gone and come back.
Look, I remember Predator 2.
Awesome there.
Right, like I know Predator 2, like Danny Glover found the ship or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And there were like 9 of them on there.
Right. So there was definitely like a whole thing going on with that, but we don't ever, I mean, again, in the movies, we don't ever get to know like what their planet is like, why they're doing that, like, right? We don't, right?
No,
okay,
not really. I mean, there's some lore, and the comic books have tried to go into it, but I mean, the deeper you go into these things, the kind of worse they get, because all the ideas start to become samey after that.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool, like they show up and. I do like that the Predators sort of ambiguous. Like they could be the good guy or the bad guy depending on the story.
Yeah.
But I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, mainly the biggest lore of the Predator is how often movie makers make bad Predator movies. That's like the biggest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's almost
like,
how can you have an original take on it? Now, I was excited when I saw the trailer for Prey because I was like, all right, set in the 1700s with the Comanche Indians. Or Native Americans, I should say.
Comanche you're right. Tribe. They're Comanches.
What's that?
You are right. They are Comanche.
Yeah. No, I know. I said Indians by mistake. I meant to say Native Americans. Don't want to get anybody, Don't want to get anybody upset with me. I guess now it's indigenous people, so I got to keep up with the terminology.
But because there are a lot of tribes who prefer Indian. So.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, it says Comanche Nation in the summary, so we'll stick with that.
We'll stick with that. Stick with the summary.
We'll stick with the summary.
Stay with the summary.
And what I thought was cool about it was, okay, this is, how is somebody, prehistoric going to. Not prehistoric. It's not prehistoric, but technology-wise, it might as well be prehistoric, right? I mean, it might as well be.
Why do you want to hunt?
I mean, you're going up. I think there's a scene in there too. Warning, spoilers, where the French, fur trappers or whatever are like trying to shoot this thing. It's like with their muskets and like I feel really. I'm like, well, that's not a fair fight. The Predator's just like do.
Well, I mean, the Predator never fought fair though, because even in the now times, the Predator could be invisible. It's not fair to kill something when you're invisible,
right?
So I mean, let's not say that the Predator was.
Yeah, but it felt really unfair. Like it felt like at least we had bullets and stuff. Now they they had like muskets and they had to like reload
the area back in the day, like you and hope, right?
Right.
You can't even do that with a musket. Yeah.
No.
That's pretty bad.
Right. So I thought there was that scene made me chuckle a little bit, but anyway, what I also was kind of hesitant about. So these are just what my expectations were going in, right? I was like, all right, kind of cool that it's set in a different time period. That's neat. we have now seen over thanks to the Me Too movement in the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of female action heroes being the lead, right? And
I don't know.
so
I don't know what Me
one of
Too
the
has to do with it, but yeah, okay,
you don't
okay.
you don't think that had anything to do with the
I
fact that
don't
there's been
think.
a lot of female lead action heroes?
I don't think it's a result of Me Too, but I mean, let's keep going.
Okay. Well, that's I mean, I don't know. All right, so since 2016, conveniently around the same time as the Me Too
Oh
movement,
man, dude.
we've
All right.
we've
Okay.
seen well, no, we've seen a lot more films with females as the lead star, as the lead, female action heroes, female lead star, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so on the one end, I'm like, all right, we're seeing another one. What's going to make this one different? And so my expectations coming in again were, I'm not sure. I gotta say, after watching it though, this one was fantastic. Like this, the actress who plays her, which I'll get her name. I have her name right here.
Mid Thunder.
Yeah,
Amber
she
Mid
was
Thunder.
really, really compelling, and I love the fact that like her character makes these incredible strides to the point where by the end of the film, I'm like, yeah, she's totally gonna beat this thing, and I'm totally on board for it. And because one thing that I thought that the whole film did was, it put up a lot of different people against the predator, and so it didn't feel like at first I thought this predator's just gonna like rip through everybody, And I'm like, and what it did was it actually it showed um her tribe and the warriors of the tribe as competent fighters. I thought there was the one scene, obviously, where the guy's got again, spoilers for anybody. He's got 3 dots on his head. We know what that means, having seen Predator movies. He has no clue, but then quickly they learn, and I'm like, oh crap! And the fight that ensues, even though the next two warriors lose that battle, I'm like, man, these guys are all earning it. Like this is, I'm like I'm getting a satisfying experience out of this. Even though we know the Predator shtick at this point, we know he's going to win, but predictably, and again, spoilers if you haven't watched it, like I knew the brother was going to die, right? Like you just know it's going to come down to just her at the end because every Predator movie, dating back with Schwarzenegger, with Danny Glover, I mean, it always ends up coming down to, the quote unquote star. But by the end, I feel like what we saw leading up to that final battle was like it just delivered an exceptionally satisfying ending and a successfully satisfying main character. Like I felt like by the end, man, she earned that predator head she came walking through, And I love the fact that they set up her in the quicksand, being as like the final trap, and again, every time it was questioning, whether or not they felt, and even the predator felt this way, whether or not she was an actual threat, whether or not she could actually be a warrior. And it wasn't something that they just gave her at the beginning that she was. They gave us hints that she could be. And I think throughout the film, she earns it at the end where it's like, yeah, totally. Like you like, I'm on board, and um, you know, she doesn't start out badass. She earns her way into that by the end. So that was my take on it. I truly enjoyable. Like I actually had a lot of fun watching this.
Yeah, I think the problem with Predator is that people keep trying to put characters or the ostensible prey of the
Mm-hmm.
predators um, in these extreme situations, and then they just keep trying to up the ante
Yeah.
on the predator's lethality. His kill ratio. In Predators, or they drop them on the supposed predator planet, and it's a planet with like these terrible traps in it, and there was but half the characters were like despicable, and
Mm.
there's a lot of there when you have a situation where where there's a beast or a MacGuffin kind of
Right.
thing that is pretty one note. This is gonna kill you. The
Right.
predator is one note. It's got these really wonderful stealth weapons, and it finds really cool ways to kill you. It's not. But if you want to rise above the status of, say, Friday the 13th,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just Jason.
Agreed. No, agreed. 100%. Or Halloween or any of those.
Yeah, you gotta diversify the the prey. You gotta diversify the characters that are. I don't mean diversify in the sense of ethnicity. You have to
Correct.
you have to broaden the story of the people who the predator is preying on.
Yeah.
And they haven't done that. They haven't done that since the second movie.
Correct.
The first movie had Arnold in the city, and they were smart enough in the second movie to go, okay, we got to put this in a completely different environment with a completely different.
Right, Arnold in the jungle and Danny Glover.
Arnold's in the jungle. Danny Glover's in the inner city, but Arnold's got a special forces military team, and Danny Glover's got this squad of cops. This rough-hewn squad of seasoned cops, and it's just a different experience.
Yeah.
So both those movies, for me,
very successful.
Were wonderful movies because because of the difference of environment, and then they just started to become samey after that. This movie does the same as the first two.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, totally different environment, totally different story, totally different setup. It's not like the Indians are on some kind of weird safari and then they just run into the predator, or the trappers are on this, they're trying to get this amazing game and then they end up running into the predator. It's just like circumstantial. The trappers actually have nothing to do with the Native Americans until enough people have died on both sides and they kind of run into each other.
Yep.
So I mean, the story in and of itself is compelling, and then there's a predator that's killing everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of goal that they need to establish for any movies like this in the future, which they didn't do with Aliens versus Predator, or the Predators, or the Predator, or however many other incarnations it's been. So I agree with you. It was pretty wonderful. I enjoyed it. It's one of the few movies I watched twice, because I've seen, you see movies, even if you like them, you see that movie and you're like, all right, I saw that. That's great. And then you move on. But I just enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the characters, and I enjoyed the circumstances and the visuals and the cinematography so much that I watched it again. Also, it's a very smart script. It explains to you, all the trappings, all the commodities that she's going to use in order to put up a good fight towards the end of the film. And it does it all in an organic way. So you find out, about the herb, the orange herb that they were using, and a bunch of these other things. So really smart script.
You've seen it twice. Let me ask you a quick question, because I thought I figured out why this was the case. How come, spoilers again, how come he couldn't see her at the fire? Was he just drawn to the trapper?
She had taken that orange herb.
The orange herb is okay.
Cold inside.
Oh, that's it.
They gave it to they gave it to one of the other wounded.
Yes.
And he said, I'm freezing, and she's like, "That's good, because if you're freezing, you'll stop bleeding."
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
So then that's what they use, and I kind of knew, because I know the Predator's vision is based on heat. I knew when they mentioned that they mentioned that for a reason, so that was going to factor in a little later. There are several moments in the film where he just bypassed her just because she was unarmed, and
right. Like, that's why I was confused at that particular moment. And then I also something with the ring. She held the ring, and I know she ended up using it to cut the guy's leg off, because it turned into a blade. But then she looked at the ring and goes, and he can't see me or something. Like it was weird. Like I was like,
because she had eaten the herb, so that he couldn't see because she was cold.
Okay, because she's looking at the ring when she says it, the circle.
Well, she's looking at that because it's a weapon that she can use, but then she's also saying that.
Got it. See, that was the only part. And again, that's such a minor little thing, but that's just my own confusion as to being able to talk through that.
It was information that was given to you so subtly that if you didn't file that away, you would not remember. But in rewatching it, you would go, oh, okay. That's why.
Yeah, all right, then that makes sense, because that was the thing too, where the quicksand part of it, I thought we were gonna see like kind of like a retro Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, like but then she ended up washing herself off, and I'm like, oh, well, all right. And
Yeah.
maybe that was deliberate. Maybe that was like one of those like,
It
you're
reminded
not
me
getting the same thing.
of a meme I saw a couple of years ago where there's like 4 or 5 different scenes from movies where people are sinking in quicksand.
Yeah.
And and it said something like, based on the movies I grew up with, I thought quicksand was going to be a way bigger problem when I became an adult. Nobody even talks about quicksand anymore. There was a trope in the 80s for everyone who was not alive in the 80s.
Yeah.
Where basically every hero almost inevitably would walk into quicksand whenever they're doing whatever they're doing in the woods, whenever they're in the woods or
even in the city, which was crazy,
Yes, one or two times in the city.
Where's this quicksand? Oh,
Actually, in Remo Williams, some guy fell into cement and sank into it like it was quicksand. So
yeah,
we that trope was alive and well in the 80s. Kind of fell off in the 90s, and so so kids from the 80s, quicksand's not a thing. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Also, not really dangerous. Quicksand doesn't work like it does in the movies.
Well, maybe in the 1700s. I mean, now with pollution,
maybe. Wow, toxic waste quicksand. Okay, that's a movie. We could write that.
Mutant quick. Patent pending. Patent pending. Can't steal our idea. Coming soon from Rogue Matter. Killer quicksand.
We need a better title. We'll figure out a better title.
What did you guys think? Are you Predator or are you Prey? Did you enjoy this latest installment? The only thing before we go, the only thing I got to tell you, I don't know if I would sit through another Predator movie though. Like I feel like they'd have to really come up with something totally different now for me to. It's almost like you got to watch, or you saw trailers for how bad the movies were previous in between that and Predator 2. So it was like a breath of fresh air. It's like, all right, I got to check it out now because it looks so different than anything else that came out. But now, I mean, are they going to do another?
Yeah, and everybody swore it was going to be a train wreck because it was on Hulu.
Yeah,
it's like it's on Hulu. It's like straight to streaming. So like, how good can it be?
Yeah,
but
it was a treat.
I'm kind of glad it didn't come out in the theater. I'm kind of glad it's like this hidden gem that you discover on your own. It might have made the experience even more pleasant.
Yeah,
to find like, wow, this is really good. I'm really enjoying this. It's pretty well put together. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure the creators would have wished it would have gone to higher heights, but for us, it was just right.
What do you guys think? Put your feedback in the chat. We will respond to you. When we come back, we've got Brenda Fisher, Badass Babe herself from the Badass Babes of Entertainment podcast on Rogue Matter coming up next. If you want to learn, by the way, I'm gonna cue this up even more. If you want to learn the ins and the outs of the entertainment industry, if you've ever thought about being an actor, or even just a voiceover actor, or in any way, shape, or form wanted to be associated with films and movies, you want to listen to this interview and you want to listen to her podcast. Coming up next. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave podcast.